I'm very grateful to everyone for coming. Let us start our event today, and let us start with the minute of memory to give recognition to those who have fallen.
Дякую.
Thank you.
Всі сподіваємося, що буде цей
We
рік
hope that this year is easier, is better, and the subject for our communication today is success in adversity and how to remain successful in these dramatic and difficult circumstances. But before we start the discussion, let us greet the president of the European Business Association, who will come on stage to introduce himself. I'm sure that a lot of you know him, but it will be the first time when he will address you after the general meeting of the European Business Association. Thank you.
Dear fellow EBA members, guests, colleagues, friends. I was elected the president of EBA in December, so it's a great honor for me to be able to address you for the first time in this capacity and to say a few words about myself. I represent the company Scania. I don't know if you know Scania. I used to say that it's a small company from Sweden and we make the best trucks in the world. I'm sure you've seen them on the highways. If you haven't, you will now. It's not only the best trucks, it's the most beautiful trucks. But we also do lots of equipment that you will not see. For instance, engines for diesel generators, very needed here. We do a lot of components for military equipment. For instance, the CV-90, Combat Vehicle 90, which has proved itself very well here in Ukraine. Combat Boat 90, which is doing a great job on Dnipro, eliminating enemies. The Patria 6x6 personnel carrier. And soon we will get an entirely new air defense system that will intercept drones and cruise missiles. It's called Tridon. It's completely new. As soon as it comes off the production line, some of the first units will be sent down here to Ukraine, and they're mounted on Scania chassis. So I'm very proud to represent a nation, Sweden, and a company, Scania, that is 100% behind Ukraine, and that gives a tangible support towards our victory. We started here in Ukraine in 1993, 33 years ago. We opened the rep office as one of the first foreign investors in this sector. I moved here myself, 2017, with my family. Though I was traveling to Ukraine from year 2000, so I was following it even when I wasn't here. To me, Kyiv is my home city. This is where my kids grew up. There is no other place I would rather be. This is where we make history now. And we all run our businesses here. We create jobs. We pay taxes. In my case, I deal with logistics. Logistics is the bloodstream of any society, but very much so in a country at war. And I always tell my people that right now we're having the most important works that we ever will have to make sure that Ukrainian logistics keeps rolling. And I think that is the task for every business in Ukraine, to do everything we can to help Ukraine to win this war. In the past 4 or 6 weeks have probably been the most difficult time, apart from the first week of the full-scale invasion. I run an industrial operation, 11 sites all around Ukraine. It's very difficult to do that without stable electricity supply. And we all have employees who are in flats without heating, sitting in 10 degrees. But even if it's difficult, we all show that it's possible to run business, even under these difficult circumstances. And all of us continue to work and invest here in Ukraine. And hopefully we will be a good example for others who haven't done that yet. EBA was founded in 1999, so we celebrate 27 years this year. It was founded to promote European business culture, European business values. And I would dare to say that in spite of all the suffering and problems, we have never been closer to achieving that than we are now. Things are far from perfect when it comes to the business environment, but this is a much better place for business than it was only 10, 12 years ago. Corruption is still a serious issue. I mean, that is what has been holding back investments, still holds back investments, but Ukraine has actually climbed to place 105 out of 180 in Transparency International's corruption perception index. We're already ahead of countries like Brazil and Turkey, and those are countries where people normally don't hesitate to invest because of corruption. So things are getting better. We're going through the fastest screening process of any EU member candidate. Reforms are being done even when there is a war. There's more to be done, of course, but there's a clear commitment to reform. And even when politicians fail to commit to reform, there's a strong civil society that corrects that. And we have seen good examples of that. It's not only up to Ukraine, of course, we are very dependent on the political will in Europe. Perhaps we'll have to wait many more years before we can become EU members. But the path is clear. We will align with international standards. Ukraine will be integrated into global value chains, and we will be able to access new markets in EU and beyond EU. Perhaps things will get worse before they get better. But I think EBA has an important role to play as a community, where we work together, both Ukrainian and foreign firms, to make Ukraine a better place for business. And I'm really happy to be part of this community. And I'm looking forward to good discussions today, hopefully some new insights. Once again, very welcome.
Thank you so much, Håkan. Thank you. We will, of course, we will actually got to know what is really somehow the life hack, how to be successful even nowadays. What is the source of the optimism? So we are always looking for this, especially now during this difficult time. Зараз я хотіла б запропонувати Андрію.
Okay, so today I want to invite Andriy Pyshnyy, the head of the National Bank of Ukraine, to come on stage. I'm very grateful to Mr. Andriy for joining our business community in order to inform, to give us updates on how things are going in the monetary and the banking sphere. Thank you, Mr. Andriy. Thank you. It is very often that we take the National Bank as this oasis of stability, because you are always so correct in your guidelines, and I believe that we have very solid trust. We appreciate this greatly as the business community, and we're always looking very closely at the information that you share. But it is obvious that during the years of the war, you understand already what works, what is helpful to keeping trust, and what needs to go. But what is your opinion of this coming year, of this year, 2026? What is your message to the business community? What will form the foundation for economical stability this year? And we will just have a conversation with you.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you to have been invited for the fourth time in this event. It's unbelievable that this war lasts 2 months longer than the Second World War, the Third Reich's war against Soviet Union. I have a pleasure to see you, as always. There are so many familiar faces. I see business representatives who not only have successful developments and are sharing their successes and experience. I see experience here, abundance of experience. You asked me what helps us become effective. There are a few rules. There is one rule that I recall for the past 4 years. In crisis situation, you do not rise to the level of your expectations, but you lie down and you get down to the level of your preparedness. This is universal rule that the National Bank has been using for a while daily. There is no textbook, no playbook that we can work by. Maybe we will have one after the peace arrives. We will have time to develop the textbook, and I believe everybody who is present here can develop their own textbook because they all possess unique experience. Second universal rule that we have defined, you have to explain what you do. Do what you say. It's like talk the talk, walk the walk, not talk the talk. I believe that this is something that allows all agents, all stakeholders understand what is national bank strategy. The war is the situation when we all find ourselves in unprecedented, extraordinary, high circumstances. By the way, this is the name of the International Monetary Fund, the program of indecisiveness. We have to shrink this indecisiveness. This is our objective. We have to give you the strategic directions. We have to get the normalcy back into our life as much as it is possible. We have to walk the walk, not talk the talk. From our viewpoint, this is the most effective way. There are no guidelines the way we should act in crisis environment. I have visited the conference organized by International Monetary Fund, and C-level representatives of different banks of Central and Eastern Europe were involved. It was a very interesting gathering, very interesting forum. I personally understood that adversity becomes a new norm. We're not surprised by it anymore. Secondly, the patterns, the matrix that has been developed, some scenario of crisis development, oftentimes become irrelevant the next day after they have been designed. Moreover, they all bear hypothetical judgments, and the objective of the National Bank of Ukraine is that we can either prove or refute the hypotheses that were developed in most regulations, starting with the provision of economic stability, ending with the decisions of monetary policy and continuous work. We are not theoreticians. We all have experience that we gain in difficult circumstances, and our experience is very valuable for European Union in particular. Discussing in the audience like this gives us an understanding that I will be not as humble as I should be, is that we've been talking about success for the first time, not survival, but success. And we can hardly call it a mistake. When the sky fell 4 years ago and anti-crisis package was introduced, which allowed us to win time, By realizing the strategy step by step, bit by bit, we were trying to bring the normalcy back into every sector of our economic life. Ukrainian banks were not shock generators. On the contrary, they dumped the shock. And now I see how the crediting program is being developed. And today, sitting in front of you, I can talk about loan expansion. This is something that we are almost ready for, because banks are capitalized, they are profitable, liquid. Our regulation has adapted 80% of European requirements, and they will adapt 100% requirements by the end of 2027. The banks are transparent. We are ready. The dynamics of lending processes aligns with the dynamics in peaceful times. 35%, this is credit portfolio in hryvnia. Let me remind you that back in 2014, for the 5 years, banking system and crediting was in stagnation, 60%. This is how the credit portfolio shrunk since 2016. Same is true about the currency since 2014. We managed to renew the process of crediting expansion starting with 2024. I can keep talking and talking about that, but all those decisions and solutions that we, together with the International Monetary Fund, with the Ministry of Economics and Finance, this is sublimated experience. This is our possibilities, and this is the trust in the foundation of those solutions. Because regardless how you receive our solutions, what feedback we get, this allows us to be more effective in implementing the vision that we have. Macro-financial stability is provided for, and it is secured because we get international financial support. But being here among this audience, I should say that this is not a charity, this financial support. This is the outcomes that Ukraine proved its capability, and this is the outcome that Europe has realized, that their borders lie along our borders, and the defense of Europe starts with defense of Ukraine. So let's not see it as charity, but let's all agree that this is the service that Ukraine is exclusively providing to the European Union in order to secure sustainable defense, security, and autonomy. Thank you. We all understand that based on your experience, preparedness, investment, and recognition, these are the key elements that help us stay successful. On the other hand, what you said is that communication, the right communication, walking the walk, not talking the talk, this is something that we can learn as a lesson, as a takeaway for success. What are the other key takeaways from your speech? Can you talk about inflation? How are you going to deal with the inflation this year and in the coming year? Because we all understand that the pricing policy will definitely affect inflation. How are you going to deal with that? What are the prospects here? The energy sector situation, is it going to affect inflation, or is it going to be controllable? Are we going to withstand? You asked a few questions. It's a very comprehensive question. I'll start with inflation. In 2024, the National Bank of Ukraine, trying to bring back the normalcy, moved to flexible inflation targeting, which means that our team acted with understanding that we have to direct our political monetary solutions in order to achieve 5% of inflation. The war makes us extend this horizon. However, it should not create the feeling that this target is unachievable. It is. And we proved it as a fact in 2025. And let me remind you that in December 2024, the National Bank of Ukraine saw reinflation factors. We managed to foresee it, and we realized that 2024 was going to be the year of acceleration of inflation dynamics. The shock on the side of proposition, bad harvesting year, energy deficit, the increase of budgeting funding of defense sector and security sector. There were a series of factors. We tried to mitigate our monetary policy, and we moved to harshen its policy. Inflation it achieved its peak in 2025 in May, which equaled 16.5%. Basically, this is the dynamics and trajectory that we foresaw. And under the influence of our monetary pressure and thanks to good harvesting year, inflation dynamics descended. By the end of the year, the inflation was a mere 8%, which allowed the National Bank of Ukraine in January this year to start the process of mitigation of monetary policy. We are being extra cautious here. Not cautious, cautious is probably not the right word. We are trying to be super careful. We understand the balance. We understand the consequences and repercussions. And we are trying to keep on our radar a few goals and objectives. We are trying to walk on the edge of the razor. On one side, we are trying to keep the inflation under control. We try to make the monetary market stable. I'm not talking about exchange rate. I'm talking about the market. We are trying to support the crediting policy. Over the past 2 years, we have achieved historically high figures, and we are trying to keep our monetary policy as harsh as possible so that the inflation, once it reaches its goal on the horizon that we have defined, which is 5% in 2028. January this year, we have the inflation figure as higher as 7.4%. We understand that certain factors might accelerate it by the mid of the year. There will be certain transition of the expenses in order to cover the energy deficit, and definitely we might have difficulty with harvesting, but by the end of this year the National Bank foresees that the inflation rate will be 7.5%, no higher. In 2027 we will approach 6% and achieve 5% in 2028. Why is it important? Because the National Bank of Ukraine, in the process of implementation of its policy, has been stating for 3 years that the priority of securing hryvnia assets remains important. Our vision and the need to preserve the currency market remains. So we are going to deepen the flexibility, increase the flexibility, which means that demand and supply will define the trajectory course, but the National Bank will be there in order to secure the stability of monetary market and the dangerous volatility that defines the course as the shocking generator. So rather than absorbing the shock, we are going to tackle the volatility. So we are being very flexible in implementing and the choice of our toolkit and implementing the combination of the toolkit. But we are being persistent and adamant in getting back all economic processes into their market normalcy. This is something that made us marketable, strong, something that gave Ukrainian business the feeling of risk and the ability to manage the risk. We are going going to be there because the military economics, I'm not going to go into details, is special, and the National Bank sticks to its mandate. This is pricing stability, financial stability as a follow-up stage, and support of economic development under the condition of securing the first and the second. But we understand that we all live in special environment, and this audience has to be provided more oxygen with every next day, at the same time focusing on our key stability. We are trying to find the balance. We are trying to walk on the edge of the razor, and the stability of the dynamics that is defined by the context of war and our special situation and special opportunities for economic development and growth given the challenging conditions of energy deficit and historically harsh winter. I have a feeling by looking at this wonderful conscientious business, the work of the government, the work of our ministries who are trying hard to keep the system stable and manageable and controllable. But at the same time, we are all tired. And we are about to finish the 4 years of war and move into the 5th year of war. I'd like to ask you and all other speakers, where do you get the source for optimism, for your inner stability, for your inner resilience? What do you do in order to stay strong and to look forward optimistically? Because this year does not promise to be easier than the previous years. Nevertheless, we have to get some energy in order to be the sample of stability, in order for people to look up to you. So what is your source of optimism? That's a great question. Thank you. I believe that all of us are trying to get as much as possible from communication. We are trying to get our energy from people who we coexist with. I believe that we feel this environment in a very subtle and particular way. There are emotions that are born thanks to sincere relationships. I believe that the source of my energy is this audience as well. Every time I find myself here, I understand that we will stand strong. We've been standing strong for 4 years, and if need be, we will stand strong another year, yet another year. Every year we were anticipating that the next winter is going to be harsher than the previous. I remember my first year in the National Bank as a governor, so I remember the first working day was on the 10th of October. That was our general meeting, and I remember that I came up with the idea of power banking, and this is something that allows the banking system to function continuously in total blackout in harsh winter conditions. Yeah, banking system keeps functional. And now I remember that with ease, thanks God. But I remember the day one that I spent with my colleagues was in the shelter. And this is some sort of tonality, calmer tone, something that I carry on with me into the next year, into the next harsher winter and yet harsher winter this year. And I believe this is the 4th most difficult winter in our war time experience. And you, the audience, give me the inspiration. There is no other country for us. There is no other homeland for us. And I don't want any other homeland. This is my homeland. We are going to stand strong and we will flourish. Maybe I sound pathetically corny. However, the war gives us the opportunity to do things that we haven't thought of in peace times.
The people that are around, we're all sharing this experience of resilience. and we will hold on. Absolutely. Mr. Andriy, thank you so much. It is true that during the war, we reevaluate a lot of things. And thank you for really highlighting the value of communication. I believe that this is exactly something that we are trying to do every year, every other difficult year, to enable all of us to bring ideas together and to support each other. Thank you so much, Mr. Andriy. Let us give the floor on and listen to what others have to say. Thank you. Okay, the next one up. Oh, actually, we are about to welcome on stage the participants of the next section of our meeting. So we will have a combination of experts. Anka Feldhusen, she's the new business ombudsman in Ukraine, and I believe that most of you know you in her previous position because she used to be the ambassador of Germany in Ukraine. So it would be very interesting for us to hear what she thinks, what she believes as to what her mandate will enable her to do over the coming years. Also, on this stage, where we were inviting Serhii Kovalenko, the CEO of D.Solutions YASNO brand. Let me start by thanking him for what you are doing, because we have all felt how essential your work is. And finally, Natalia Kondratchuk from OTP Bank. We want to thank OTP Bank for supporting this event. Ms. Natalia, welcome. You are the person in charge of corporate finance. Okay. To begin with, I want to thank Ms. Anka for being prepared to speak Ukrainian. You are welcome. Let me ask you the following. First of all, what does the new mandate dictate? What will it enable you to do? What will be the highlights and the focus of your activity? Where can business find support from your behalf? I came back to Ukraine with a new mandate that was something new to me, something that I'm not used to, because business for embassy is something that lies far beyond. But I was very quick to understand what it's all about. And during the election process, I realized that it has been a long time since I was familiar with the business framework in Ukraine. It's been since year 2014 that I was observing it, the process in Ukraine. And I believe that Ukraine has changed a lot since then, and a business ombudsman council can support both the state, the government, and business to adjust to the challenges of the new times. And it's not only the war, but for me, first and foremost, it is linked to accession to the EU. So the goal is to find the common ground and to move forward. I am going to put a focus on the communication between the state and the business sector, and I truly hope that my team can serve as a mediator between those parties. It is very interesting. Well, you see, you mentioned that there must be communication, and this is something that you will fuel. And this is exactly what Mr. Andriy mentioned as a very important element to continue to maintain communication between the institutions and business. Now to the issue of potential investors, because we do see that there is a business community that continues to invest into Ukraine, and there are other companies that are currently staying out of Ukraine. There are businesses that have potential interest, but they never turn into actual investors. What do you think? Can a business ombudsman support and help in transforming the potential investors into actual investors even during the war as part of the ombudsman mandate. What can the state do? What can the business community do? What can the ombudsman do in order to make this work practical and real? Well, there are certain risks, and there is not much we can do. Well, of course, the German investors, well, first and foremost, they are held back by the war. They are not quite sure about how to handle the risk, even the risk to their lives. But you're here. Well, I've been here before, since the beginning of the Russian aggression in 2014 and 2022. And even the insurance companies are not prepared to absorb the risks. Well, it is something that every business needs to calculate, to estimate for themselves. But what the Business Ombudsman Council can do is actually to improve the investment climate by making sure that all of the institutions and the legislative framework, anything that is there in Ukraine, we want to make sure that they are efficient. They are efficient in their work in cooperation. There must be more communication with the ministries, with the law enforcement agencies, to make sure that investors understand and believe that the rules are equal, equitable for everyone. There must be no controversy between the law and the rules to give the investors a feeling of solid consistency. I believe that this is something that is currently missing in Ukraine. It is very often that we work on cases where the state did one thing and the next day there's something totally different. The investors are not really good at perceiving this. So there has to be consistency. Yes, absolutely. There has to be common ground. So we need to learn how to find common ground. But do you believe that it's possible that investors may come during the war? Or do we really need to create the proper climate and communication to make sure that after the war, the situation is good for investors to come in? What do you think? Because there are companies that are also going through war and they're getting investment. Well, maybe, yes, I do agree with you. Maybe Ukraine is not surviving the hottest war there is in the world. Well, Ukraine made a civilizational choice, which is the EU accession. And I believe that even if investors at the moment are hesitant about their investments, but the way the EU accession track may enable Ukraine to make the correct steps already, where investors will see the reforms already, and this can actually be persuasive for the investors. But it is difficult work, and I hope that my team and I will be able to assist in this. Oh, I'm sure you will. Us Ukrainians, we need to thank Germany for supporting Ukraine, because we really feel it, feel your support along the way. And I hope that this will accelerate victory, our work, that the work that we do in harmonizing the legislature and in keeping us open to the potential investments in Ukraine. Okay, thank you so much. We will come back to you. The next question is to Serhii. We all see the work that your team is doing, the work of your company. You have been very popular, and we are all expecting even greater achievements from you. But let me tell you personally that I believe you're working wonders. And during these 4 years that we've been surviving this war, we're all reevaluating the situation. We observe the operational processes, we think of how to improve them, and you are at this the director of this one of the key companies, what conclusions were you able to make? What are your takeaways from experience? What tools need to be part of the past, or and which it should be part of the future? Which should we bring forward? Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. It's good that you are here and not at home, and it can help preserve some energy, which is quite relevant at the moment. Well, you know, this question is not very easy to answer because you are placing a focus on the process that's as if it's already in the past, but actually it is still ongoing. We are surviving a very difficult winter, autumn, summer, and it may not even be the last one. Therefore, it is maybe too early to draw some conclusions. So what I can tell you right now is that some of the things that everyone will be certainly using is the right of choice. It seems like a futile kind of thing when a power station is destroyed. The stakeholders need to make a decision. Do we want to build it back or just leave it? So it is not something that's done automatically. If it's destroyed, then we do not automatically need to build it back, because, you know, 2.2 billion euro is the budget for renovation. You know, last night there was another attack and some more destruction. So it's all, as it already the head of the National Bank already said, that we are here. We do not have any other choice but to keep going and to keep working. I believe that this is something that does not only help the CEO or the team, it brings us all together. It brings the team of any company together and any society together, and it is very helpful in terms of keeping sane in this situation. Secondly, it's indiscreetness. We need to understand that it is not the case where today something is bad and it will automatically become better soon. It's not the case. This process is long, it's prolonged, and there is nothing that we can really count on getting worse or better. What I mean to say is that we need to tune in into the situation as it now, so we can plan in the vector sort of way. So there is this some kind of start, but there is no finish, so to say. So it may sound as if there is no hope, so to say, but that's not what I mean. It will enable us to concentrate on smaller steps. I believe that these two things and these two perspectives are relevant regardless of the sector that we use them for. So this is something that I would recommend to stick to. That's curious. That's interesting. Yeah, it's true that, as you mentioned, that this way is something that we are going and does not seem to have any end. But I believe that we are all doing making some intermediate conclusions about something that's not working or something that is working. As I heard from one of the CEOs, he confessed that he stopped using some kind of long-term strategies. So he shifted focus more to the tactical kind of planning, because this is a more operational mode of action for the current moment. Would you agree with this, or in your area of work? Well, let me not agree with this, actually. I will not agree that strategy is not as important as tactics. Well, let us take take a step back, so to say, and recall, for example, let us take a look at the way that we have gone since 2022 over to year 2026. We had an outstanding event for the economy and the energy system. So we have joined the European network and cut off the connection to the enemy. So it was very strategic, but it was also very tactical. Moving on, when the full-scale invasion just started, of course, it entailed the risk of losing some um, market advantages, and but Ukraine, nevertheless, they kept some market mechanisms and continued promoting it. We are still working on the export-import network, and we are now enjoying the balance of uh, the electricity that we are using and some of it that we're exporting, and it's a strategic decision. It's not so much tactical. Therefore, what I like to say is that we have a goal, and we did make this civilizational decision. And of course, there may be some conditions that are putting us off track for a moment, but we're still staying focused on our goal. What is actually a strategy? It is thinking what the world will look like in a few years and then imagine our place in this world. But we have made a decision, but we do understand that the world may not necessarily be the way we expect it to be. Yes, absolutely. Of course, the new constant is the lack of stability. And all of this is something that we are guided by. But nevertheless, we're talking about year 2026, because this is the time that we are surviving now, and we need to overcome the adversity. So the question is, do you believe year 2026 is not it's not likely to be easier or to survive in terms of the energy? And is there something that we can do now to facilitate, to make the coming winter better? Well, better, easier, they are all adjectives, but this is something that this our reality. Yes, of course, but I believe that we need to step out of the box of responsibility. On the other hand, we should not count on things getting better, easier, or different in a good way. In terms of survival, it is not the correct approach for those who do mountaineering or do extreme sports. You need to prepare for the worst, and then it will enable you to pass. Things never go as planned; they go as they go. So therefore, I I know that there are the variables that we can count on. We need to prepare. Everyone will prepare at their own level. There may be a warm winter or a normal winter. So I wouldn't call this winter abnormal, so to say, if we just take away this war component. I mean, it's normal to have freezing temperatures in winter. Therefore, we need to prepare at every level. And I can tell you that I can see that 3 billion clients that are private, and we see that their desire to prepare really depends on the emotional, communicational background and the reality that they are finding themselves in terms of electricity. If the forecasts are bad, but they have electricity at the moment, they are not as enthusiastic about preparing for the following season, and the other way around. If the forecast is good and they are, but they have stayed for 10 plus hours without electricity, then of course they want to plan. But I want to urge you to prepare for the winter, to prepare for the summer, and not just for one of it. It's just, this unended track. Regarding business, the business deserves a lot of applause, because starting from small businesses and ending with the larger clients, everyone who could technologically and physically in terms of preparation, they did it. Of course, this pushes some of the processes. For example, the prices go up for some products. It, of course, affects the macro indices, but the way business has prepared, and we have already almost survived this winter.
But if we look 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks ago, physically, it was difficult to survive. Still, we were able to buy food. We could visit the gym. Kids could go to school. I believe that the 1st of March, this is going to be spring and all our sufferings will end. I believe that this is the wrong mindset. We all have to be prepared for the follow-up, winters, springs, summers, etc. Otherwise, it's not possible. So this is the beam of hope. Let it be the beam of hope. Amen. 2 weeks ago, you said that it was difficult, but was it the worst case scenario or could it have been even worse than that? It's difficult to stay optimistic. I will rather be realistic. I don't like falling into despair. It could always be worse. We all know that. Statistically speaking, we all understand that we were attacked last night. Or we might be attacked again. No one knows what will be the consequences of this attack. We cannot foresee the consequences of any air attack. If it wasn't for that, all the forecasts would have been more or less accurate. The war does not allow us to make clear forecast, accurate forecast. Can it be worse? Yes. Can it be catastrophically bad? I don't think so. It's already optimistic viewpoint. Okay. If you want more optimism, here you have. Electricity deficit, nuclear power plants are working full scope. Import, thanks to some smart decision, is working full scope. So we do all we can. Still, some things are missing. Because of these fluctuations, the average temperature across Ukraine will keep falling, which means that we will have to consume less and the deficit will be smaller. When the sun is up in Kyiv region and across Ukraine, we will be generating solar energy. I don't know how many solar generating stations we have mounted in the last 2 years. I believe that once the spring sets in, the situation will definitely be more optimistic. And what I expect that it'll be better than in minus 25 degrees centigrade and when people are living without heat and electricity. Yeah, but once we live until November and December, so we have to prepare. We have to prepare so that the next winter, regardless, the challenges will be easier in terms of heat in our houses and in terms of business functioning. We hear it from all media outlets. Number one, this winter proved that we have to think not only about the electricity, but also about the heat, because we understand no electricity definitely is not comfortable, but it's survivable. But once you don't have heat in your accommodation, then it really hurts. In that case, we need to think forward. What should I do in order to prepare better? How am I going to survive the next winter if there is no heat? What do you do personally? I live in an average apartment building. We are not dependent on thermal power plants. We have the pump. And of course, the pump doesn't work because there is no electricity and there is no heat in our apartments. So what we did, we created homeowners association in 2022. Then we had to talk to all our residents, and we said that we have to think about alternative power sources for our elevators. All other solutions, it's up to you. Elevators were functional even when we didn't have electricity for 17, 19 hours. So it's just individual generators that we installed. What about funding? We understand that there were certain challenges there too. When we're talking about finances, so we need to talk about the payments because utility bills were very high. And if people failed to pay utility bills, of course, that was critical for us. And I believe that the level of payment is now equal to pre-war years. Used to be 50%, 55%, but now it's way better. And this brings me back to what I said at the beginning, that we managed to sustain the system and keep developing, even in times of war. Natalia, over to you. What are the efficient toolkits that you're going to keep using in banking sector? What works, what doesn't, what did you have to give away with, what were some of the traditional tools that stopped working? Did you do such analysis in your team? Good afternoon. Thank you for your question. I will be in solidarity with my colleagues. Communications is the most crucial. This is what we started with back in 2022. What was important to understand is not only what happens to people in the bank, with your personnel, with the finances, with the capital, but what happens to your clients. Are they secure? Did they relocate their business? Do they have staff? Can they continue their industrial cycle and production cycle? Understanding the economic situation of each client and capabilities of each party, we either offered very quick, simple, easy solutions, understanding that logistical chain kept working. We actually prolonged the credit offers to our clients. On the other hand, we try to make a deeper analysis and offer individual funding schemes. What helped us was digitalization. This is something we didn't have experience with before, but over the past years, it proved to be a very demanded mechanism in cooperation with our clients. For example, using e-digital signature, we sign lending agreements very quickly, and we can provide the loan in the matter of minutes. So this continuity and dexterity of our process of the entire banking system became very important. There were certain processes that were automated, that were optimized, but this digitalization, this E factor became very, very crucial in the past years. In 2026, we are going to continue doing the same. We will stay in touch with our clients. We will provide all sorts of services, transactional services, funding services, and our goal is to remain a reliable partner. So partnership is a key word in our cooperation with our clients. Another question for you, Natalia. How did the conduct of your clients change their demeanor? Do investors have the appetite? Do they want to expand their portfolio and get more products? And if you can go by sector. The situation is typical for the entire banking sector. We see the deduction, the shrinking, and there is the lack of big demand for long-term investment loans. Short-term loans are in high demand, something that has a big overturn program. Also, in our bank, the credit portfolio rose by 35% compared to 2024. Physically, we provided 7.4 billion hryvnias of loans to our clients. We have exceeded our own plan by 20% when it comes to contracting new agreements. And this talks about demand of our clients and growth of our bank. We also offered new solutions to our clients. We followed the demands and the needs of our clients. We keep funding relocated business. We understand that in agricultural business, they cannot offer the collateral in order to get a new loan. Then we offer financial agrarian statements. We are being very successful because we provide a unique service in the market, which we call the agricultural factory. We provide loans to farmers and we do it very quickly. Basically, the collateral is the future harvest. In one day, we can provide preliminary decision to the client and they understand whether they are eligible to get funding from OTP Bank. Basically, we do it very fast and the portfolio grows exponentially. Agricultural funding and food industry funding and the main drivers of the GDP of Ukraine takes the prevailing share in the entire banking system. And we all see that the energy loans are also in high demand of crediting. In 2026, we are going to expand our crediting in this sector and we will provide this to our clients so that they are energy independent and they can continue their industrial processes continuously. And the last question to all of you, the source of optimism for all of you for this year. I'm not sure if you've heard or read that in Munich Security Conference, we recognized Ukrainian people as the source of optimism. So I drive the source of optimism for me are Ukrainian people. This is the major component of our security and security of the EU, and it will remain to be so. Thank you. Natalia, communications is number one for me. Talking to people, talking to colleagues, clients, this is the source of my energy. And I multiply it by our traditions, folk traditions, culture, our Ukrainian vyshyvankas, embroidered national clothes. And this Ukrainian spirit, this is something that cannot be overestimated and it truly inspires. Serhii? I actually get my source of inspiration from social networks. I read the comments and this is where I get my optimism. Then you have to thank your clients. Thank you very much. We all understand that the year ahead is going to be challenging, but we have all developed certain takeaways. Thank you very much for your contemplations. Now We invite the panelists of panel 2, Tomasz Fiala, CEO, Dragon Capital, the representative of Madrakesh and Kerry, Olena Vdovichenko, and Håkan, Managing Director of Skenia, Ukraine. Over to you. We will be talking about growth and competitiveness and what gives us the opportunity of growth.
Thank you so much. So we will talk about growth and what is actually the drivers for your company development as well. But let me start probably from Tomasz, since he is very good always on macroeconomy and actually since you are investing in various fields. So how do you see the developments in this year and what gives you also optimism for going forward in 2026?
Okay, well, yeah, we are indeed kind of relatively optimistic for this year. We have been already increasing our investments over the last 2 years, and last year, as I said publicly, we have almost achieved the pre-war level, which is almost 100. I mean, we achieved almost $100 million of new investments that we either actually already implemented or started implementing last year. It's a little bit less than before the war, but getting quite close to pre-war levels. And this year we'll actually do quite a bit more. Also, thanks to raising 3 new funds that will target infrastructure, rebuilding Ukraine's infrastructure, and private equity. Most of the money, 70%, is going to greenfield projects. So it's new construction, new jobs, new investments in Ukraine. Macro-wise, we anticipate 1% GDP growth, so it's less than last year. Last year, we ended based on preliminary figures. They will be still adjusted at about 1.8% GDP growth. I mean, in 26, this 1% GDP growth assumption is based on the assumption that the war will continue, the hot phase of the war will continue for the full year, and that we will have a significant electricity deficit. Last year, the deficit was roughly 4%, if you take the average for the full last year. For this year, we anticipate that the deficit will be larger, roughly 10%. So far, we are starting a little bit worse than this 10% level, but hopefully the situation will improve a little bit, also with the weather improving and some new investments in the sector. One should also say that the weather has been quite disadvantageous this year. The average temperature so far this year is about 80 degrees colder than last year. So that has also increased electricity consumption and the deficit. What is the second thing that is very important is budget financing. Here, thanks to our European partners and the approval of the Ukraine support loan of 90 billion euros. And we expect the IMF also to have a board meeting at the end of this month and approve a 4-year IMF program. So this taken together with the support that was approved previously, that's the ERA program and the Ukraine facility from the EU that are still running throughout this and partially next year. The budget is very well funded. We expect to receive in excess of $50 billion this year, so that's same level as last year. That will fund the budget deficit, which is going to be again roughly $50 billion like last year. Will allow the NBU to grow their reserves further. We expect only a modest devaluation of the hryvnia versus the dollar, between 3 to 7%, so quite insignificant. Probably a little bit less than inflation, which the National Bank now expects at 7.5%. We expect it to be a little bit less. So the macro environment is relatively okay, except for the deficit and except, if So businesses should be operating relatively well, relatively profitably. We could see it also last year. Tax revenues exceeded by far pre-war levels. Actually, already in 24, the budget tax revenues in dollar terms were matched pre-war levels, and last year they exceeded them. So businesses seem to be working okay. I mean, part of the contribution was also increase in some of the taxes, like the military tax, some excise taxes, and so on. That has had also had a contribution. But
do you believe it was also like because of the shadowing, no? The shadowing.
Well,
no?
I mean, the shadowing, I guess there are mixed results in the shadowing. I guess if you talk to electronics retailers or if you talk to cigarette producers, they would have an issue with a suggestion that there has been a de-shadowing. Probably not that significant. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed with the IMF actually compromising with the Ukrainian government on some of the prior actions that we were supposed to do. I think it was correct to ask us to do this homework. We are doing it for ourselves. For instance, introducing VAT on these packages that are coming into Ukraine. It's already $7 billion worth of goods that we receive mainly from China, and I don't see a reason why the Ukrainian government should subsidize Chinese producers and Chinese exports by not charging VAT on those imports. I also think that introduction of VAT above a certain limit on private entrepreneurs is fair. I think here everybody pays taxes and works in the white economy, so I think it's not fair to charge, for instance, banks 50% corporate profit tax, and on the other hand, you let people pay no taxes or 5%. So I think it's more about creating a level playing field for everybody.
Yeah, I think EBA was definitely also in favor of this kind of proposals in terms of introduction of VAT for parcels, and also we would definitely support actually more level playing field for everyone, including those ones who from small, like when it comes to private entrepreneurs who are misused actually in order to minimize taxes, right?
Well, here IMF didn't give up on this requirement; it just moved it to a later stage. But let's see whether the government will actually, or the parliament will be able to vote in favor of these changes after the program has been approved. I think the maximum leverage is before the program is actually approved, rather than when we are already in the program.
Yeah, because well, some days ago, one of the diplomats, European diplomats, was explaining that it's easier to introduce taxes to big, for example, banks, because the population would never probably guess that they would have more levies and more, pressure, rather than to introduce VAT for parcels. Then everyone will start to feel it. And of course, like from populistic point of view, it's easy not to introduce VAT for parcels. So that's why, somehow the diplomat from Europe was saying that sometimes it's necessary to take these politically difficult decisions and impose those things which are not being supported by the population. But nevertheless, still, do you think that we are yet at this stage?
That depends on what choice you are making. Your choice is to maximize your chances to get re-elected, then you go the populistic route. Or if you are smart and try to do what's the best for Ukraine, for its economic strength and its military strength, then you do another thing, yeah.
But when it comes to foreign investors as well, you speak with them all the time, right? And basically, what do you feel? What can Ukraine do in order to convert those potential investors into real investors? And do you believe it's possible still during the wartime?
Well, for the vast majority, unfortunately, the security risks prevail. So for many of them, no matter what we would do, Ukraine tried to replicate Singapore or the radical pro-market reforms that our neighbors have done already in the 90s, like privatizing, deregulating, liberalizing the tariffs. It would still not be enough, but for some it would move the handle, and it would definitely motivate many more investors to look at the market, and especially those that are already in Ukraine. We see that those that already operate in Ukraine, they are ready to consider M&A or investing into their businesses, enlarging their businesses. They are more comfortable with the security risk. So for them, these market reforms, which Ukraine still has not done, unlike countries that have joined the EU 20 years ago, those would be a contributing factor.
Len, how the situation is in your business, because you also, to a certain extent, resemble the situation of the consumption market, right? So, how would you characterize actually the expectations for this year, and what have you changed in your business in order to adjust better to the new challenge of the constant changes?
May I take the privilege to speak Ukrainian, Håkan? Sorry, and thank you.
Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about the retail, what is happening in our sector in metro, cash and carry specifically. Retail in general is very crucial for the economy and development in Ukraine. It accounts for 22% of trade, and despite all the challenges, it continues growing. The year 2026 has seen an increase in 22%, a little bit less than the previous year, but despite all the challenges, and if there are some colleagues from my retail sector here in the audience, I want to give you guys my respect for staying in the market. But talking about metro specifically and the challenges that we're facing daily, let me mention the security and the safety and security concerns connected with the team security and the security of our customers. We close down every time during the air alert. We evacuate both our team members and the clients, and we take these steps consciously. We are losing about 10% of the goods turnover per year, but no money is more valuable than the lives of people. So that's first. Secondly, the challenges are connected with the supply chain. The goods are being held back at the customs. We haven't seen this in year 2025 and before, but you all remember the strikes at the Polish borders. There is some certain inconsistency in the actions of the tax administration that fine the white businesses, and it's resource intensive, financially and in terms of human capital. Of course, we can stand our ground in the court, but it takes the time that we otherwise would have directed elsewhere. And the energetic situation, the energetic challenge that we're all facing, our stores were built with the generators, but they were not planned to work 24/7. A generator is an assistive device. It is not the only one. We are all taking different approaches for various trade centers. For some trade centers, we were able to switch to imported electricity. Others are not enabling us to do it due to the outdated hardware. So we are looking for alternative resources, for example, solar energy and others. But these are the challenges that we're facing daily. And despite that, last year we have grown 18%, and half of this accounts for inflational growth, and the other half accounts for the increase of the sold goods. Are we talking about hryvnia? Yes, it's in hryvnia. So 50% is inflation and 50% is the amount sold. So we worked more efficiently. We are working with three categories of clients. It's HoReCa, our strategic partner, the end consumer, and the traders. two categories grew. For example, Horeca grew by 22%, as supported by the small and medium businesses. And we are happy to support those businesses, although they are they are facing difficult times, but they're still growing. Yeah, this is amazing. They are overcoming all the hardships. When I have conversations with the small restaurants, and I'm not talking about big ones that have some funds, and I talk to the medium size restaurants and I ask them, how do you manage? They say that they are bringing generating profit by selling their skills, and they're investing the revenue into the restaurants. So let us support the horeca sector. Go get some coffee and cake. So they do deserve being supported. The end consumer category also grew by 19%. The trader is the non-network and the individual private entrepreneurs. So this sector is shrinking, partly because there was a territory lost, and in general, there is a decrease. So overall, we have grown 18%. The forecast, the estimates for this year is 14% of growth. We are operating the data for the financial year that starts in October. So now we're in the second quarter of the financial year. And despite the difficult January and February, we are still following and we are keeping in the estimated figures. It is all due to this resistance, the resilience of our team. Also, a lot is due to the digitalization. Lots of the processes in our company are digitalized. A lot of routine procedures are done in a digital way. I have stopped signing papers physically. Lots of our routine processes are robotized. We are partly implementing AI in demand estimation, our pricing strategies, in marketing communications. All of this releases money that can be reinvested in our clients' new commercial initiatives and the growth of human potential and our team, because this is the key part that strengthens the efficiency of every transaction and freeing the funds to add value to for our clients. You mentioned some challenge with the personnel in Horeca, and actually in every sector we're challenged with a workforce deficit. Does the AI partly cover this gap of a workforce? No. Artificial intelligence is not able to bridge the gap. For example, it's just artificial intelligence. If you put in garbage, then the garbage will be out. So AI is solely an additional and assistive tool that helps find a certain pattern that is not easy to see just by running SQL table or spreadsheet in an Excel. So AI is able to analyze large data and then provide us some pattern that we can apply into this or that commercial sphere and give us a benefit of more prompt response and free the money that can be then redirected to development or people. But it's not omnipotent, so to say. Yes, I see. So you're talking about investing into the team and automatization. Yes, automatization and robotization of routine processes, where a robot will perform routine processes in HR, legal, QA. Do you think, Mark, some shop assistants can be robots? Well, we are investing a lot in user experience. Automatization, so self checkout is something that is the norm already. We have seen such self-checkout in 23 centers already. A new innovation is the fast line. If for those who come to our stores, you know what I'm talking about. Those who don't, you are very welcome. It is something that where you take a scanner, you scan your purchases, and then you go onto a platform and pay as similar to a card payment. So you do not need to unload your goods as a self checkout. So it's different. It's much more convenient. Because there is a lot that the person may be getting, so there is no need to unload all of the purchased goods and then put them into bags. And time-wise, it can save you a lot of time, because it can only take up to 1 minute, so you will save 4 minutes at the self-checkout, at the fast line compared to the self-checkout. And it is also a really good experience. But looking at the average check, how does the behavior change? What goods have become more popular? Well, the behavior has changed over these 4 years, of course, generated by the inflation and the challenges of the war. The demand is mostly the first necessities. The non-food items have decreased. The the uh, uh, the detergent sector only is purchased with discounts. And actually, it is commercially not the best situation. Do people not do their laundry? No, I'm not saying this. I mean, people are just waiting for the promotional prices. And lastly, what I wanted to say is that, 1 second, I'm sorry. But despite all, the clients remain loyal to their psychological anchors, so to say. You can see this after special critical situations. For example, some snacks, salty and sweet snacks grow by a certain percentage after some critical situations, as well as liquor. So this can show this approach of consumers that want to balance their emotional state, so to say. The fastest growing category of goods is the fresh category. It's meat, vegetables, and fruit. It is partly due to the approaches that we implemented into our organization. They are growing 20%, and the previous year has seen the rise of 30% in hryvnia amount-wise. And also the goods of the category that are prepared, they're like pre-cooked, pre-served, so they are already prepared to be further processed. For B2B clients, it is due to the fact that they have large deficit of workforce, because a lot of young people in the age span of 18 to 22, they went abroad. It was a huge blow to Horeca, and for the end consumer, the time between so the time that they can enjoy them having electricity is shorter. Therefore, they are more likely to take something that's already pre-made so that they can cook it quickly in the short period that they have electricity. It is also very important for the companies that are not just prepared to survive, but also to keep creating added value for the client. It's about stability, about having something in stock and available. Thank you.
How is a company, a small company which produces best cars in the world, how is it doing now in 2026? So,
Well-
and what are your plans and what are your forecasts for the future? And what works well, what doesn't work? So, can you share?
Yeah, well, in general, our business has been much bigger during the war than it was before the war. I mean, 2023, 2024 were our best years ever. Then with the drop last year, I think that will continue this year, but it's very much depending on the logistical needs. If the bomber bridge in one direction, then you need to redirect everything. But the big boom was in the summer of 22 when we needed to get all the grain out. You would take any truck, remake it and load it with grain. But then this has turned into regular business. Most transport providers have acquired the vehicles they need for their regular transportation. Black Sea is open again, so that also reduces the need of transporting grain on trucks far, which is not economical at all. The Ukrainian market for heavy trucks is still very, very small compared to any other country in Europe of the same size. If we sell 500 trucks in Ukraine, we would sell 6,000 trucks in Poland. And that's a country that is equal in size in terms of population and so on. So, I mean, there is still a huge need and a huge potential. On top of that, we have diversified into more municipal technology. When municipalities buy vehicles themselves, they prefer Chinese vehicles for some reason. But
Because of pricing, right?
because there might be other aspects to that as well. Perhaps they have some sales tools that we wouldn't apply. But through international financing, we can still start to sell in this segment. Previously, of course, road building was a big segment. Mining, this will come back. I mean, this will be the biggest reconstruction project in Europe since World War II. So there will be an enormous need with time. Our main issue is, like for everyone, staff. I mean, the main part of my staff are mechanics, young guys, knowledgeable on how to repair heavy vehicles. They are, of course, very needed in the army now. And we're a wide, transparent company, so we report to TTSK who we employ, and then they come for them. And my competitors in the service sector is mainly gray and black small workshops that don't report anything to TTSK. They don't pay any taxes, and that's very, very hard for us to compete with in this situation.
So that's, yeah, so this like unequal rules of the game is probably one of the things which unfortunately yet exist, right?
Yeah, and we launched some projects to try to mitigate that, but that's more long-term. I mean, one of our main problems for our customers, we don't do transport ourselves, but our customers do transport that they have no drivers. Drivers are afraid to be on the roads. They have drivers that go to Europe and then leave the truck on the roadside and call home and say, I'm in Düsseldorf, you can pick up the truck there. This happens. So we have launched a project to train female truck drivers together with the Swedish NGO. They also train bus drivers, excavator drivers. In March, we will have trained 1,000 female drivers within this project during the past 2.5 years.
So it grows.
It
right?
grows, it grows.
Ah.
It still is a very small part of the drivers.
And
in
how
Ukraine,
many do you need actually? How many drivers are needed, for example, in order to drive the car? The
Well,
trucks?
tens of thousands. would be
Tens of
needed.
thousands, right?
Of course,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And we have a similar project for mechanics, female mechanics, where we train them. Theoretical part is done by the National Transport University here in Kiev, and then we train them in our workshop and they get trained in other workshops. So long-term projects to attract new groups to this market.
But so far, it doesn't really close the gap.
It doesn't close the gap, yes,
So
no.
basically, there is still years to come in order to basically to train enough females.
For sure, and the needs will not get smaller.
But do you think that actually AI in this respect can help? Do you think that pilots, autopilots can actually be also used in the future?
Well, I mean, It does partly already now. We work a lot with AI when it comes to autonomous vehicles. And this is nothing that you would not put a heavy truck without a driver on the road today. But you can use them in mines, in closed areas like harbors. So this is coming for sure.
But then I think that actually the scope or the speed of coming will probably increase, no? How do you see?
I expect it to increase, but I don't think we will see autonomous trucks on our roads in Europe within the next 5 to 10 years.
So
I might be wrong.
5-10 years. Okay, fine. At least some room yet for human beings yet, right?
Yes.
To work.
We need them for other stuff.
Okay, good. But then the question to everyone with regards to optimism, but I will start from Håkan. What gives you optimism in this really critical environment which we are all operating in? We are all get used to this, adjusted, but nevertheless still. Sometimes it seems to me everyone needs a certain scope of inspiration. What is it for you?
There are many sources of optimism.
Like which?
Like whatever Russians do, they tend to fail in the end. They will fail this time also. I mean, we're suffering from what they're doing, but they have destroyed Russia. Russia has no future. This is not sustainable neither for us nor for them. Something will happen at some point. But I mean, another reason is what will come after this stops. This will be a very dynamic emerging economy. And as I said, the biggest reconstruction project since World War II. So there will be lots of job to do for all of us.
Wow, this is really a huge optimism. But when do you think it can happen? So it will be like a 5-year horizon or less or more?
But something will have to happen in Russia. I mean, it's impossible to predict. This system seems like they will last forever and they seem very stable until they suddenly aren't. And I think Europe and West can do a lot more to put pressure on Russia. I mean, for sure the sanctions are working, but we could do more. I mean, it's not without reasons that they try to get the sanctions lifted in this negotiation. So they are suffering, but we could do more to push them.
Thank you. Олен, що для тебе джерело оптимізму?
Я би сказала, джерело оптимізму і натхнення.
What is the source of optimism for you, Olena? So this is teams and people. This is my source of optimism. I'm admired by resilience, adaptivity, and creativity of our people, something that we've seen since the beginning of full-time invasion. So people are not only capable of recovering quickly, but generate new ideas, create new value for the clients and get profit. And I'm not only talking about my team. I'm very proud of my team, but I'm talking about all Ukrainians. It's incredible. We survived, and we survived only thanks to our optimism. Tomasz, for you.
I agree with my colleagues. On the one hand, and that has surprised everybody in the world, how resilient the Ukraine population has been. There's been obviously some outflow of 6-7 million people that have not come back so far on a net basis. But the rest is staying in Ukraine. The net outflows has been relatively small. I mean, last year it was about 300,000 people. The year before, 450,000. Last year it would have been less if not this unfortunate decision to allow the 18 to 24-year-olds to depart, because that has added about 1/3 of the people that left last year was this category of young males. And actually in that category, 100,000 people have left, which out of 700,000 in that category. So it's quite significant when 15% every 7th young man leaves because of a kind of hard to explain decision. So yeah, I think the resilience of the people, the willingness to fight, I think you would have a hard time to find any European country that would be able to build such a strong army, that would have so many men and women on the front line that are very brave. And I always let's say when you observe Ukraine from the outside, you think that the situation is quite bad. Then you come, let's say, to Western Ukraine, then you come to Kiev, and then you go somewhere into Eastern Ukraine to visit, and you see that people are also living there 30, 40, 50 kilometers from the front line, and they're kind of going about their life, and then you think that actually in Kiev it's very comfortable.
Not complain, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, the people are really brave, both those that are staying and doing business here and those that are fighting, obviously, much more. So that gives me the number one optimism. And then also, as Hakan said, the Russian economy is not as strong as it looks on the surface. And that has been also kind of helping us, that their army is not as organized and well managed as everybody feared it was. And the economy is also suffering, and there is a lot more potential from our Western partners to do both on sanctions as well as on military support to help us.
Чудово. Колеги, мені здається, ми отримали достатньо багато інформації для роздумів.
Thank you, colleagues. I believe that we got a lot of information for a lot of food for thought, and we have a lot of sources of optimism. I'd like to express my gratitude to Hakan, Tomasz, Olena, Anka, Serhii, Natalka, Andriy Pyshnyy for sharing their opinions and perspectives. And now we are going to move on to another part of our meeting. This is networking. Thank you very much to dear panelists, and let's keep communicating in same fruitful fashion. And I hope that in the course of our networking, we will find more sources of our optimism, new ideas for business, and new ideas for our resilience. Thank you.